Oh, that's creepy. I didn't know it would do that. Okay, maybe one more minute.
I just realized I forgot to add design to this list.
Oh, darn it. Okay, let's make design really quickly. Hold on, I'm making it at the end. Okay,
Sorry,
if you have
guys.
something to say for design, add it here. It should pop up in a few seconds. Oh no, poor design. Okay, maybe one more minute. Yeah, it seems like everybody's on design anyways, so. Okay, Carl, whenever you want to continue, you can go ahead, I think.
Okay. Yeah, okay, we'll start at the top then. I think what I'd like to do is hopefully with the help of returning members, look at what people have said and see if you would either maybe point out some important things that people have said that are correct. And if anything's wrong, also point that out. So we can just clarify what each team does and like, what do you think is the most important thing to take away from each section? So what let people?
And as you guys are talking about it, I'll like highlight things that you say are the most important, stuff like that.
Yeah, if you need a minute to read over things.
Yeah, yeah.
Go ahead.
I'd say number 1 and 5 are pretty important. That kind of goes in with how like the sub-teams connect with each other, or the team aspects, sorry.
Yeah, I definitely agree.
And this is, sorry, sort of a meta point, but like this is sort of a discussion you want to have. So if any of you like in general have questions or like you want to add in some things or you want to be like, well, would this be important? Like stuff like this, please bring it up. I think the point about like getting data is actually really big. Like it's kind of like an obvious point, but like that's the ultimate purpose. Like the purpose for wet lab isn't to run experiments. Experiments is just a method to getting the data we want, right? And when I say we want, it's also very, very, you have to be very careful about what data we want is. Correct data, so to speak, not favorable data. And there's a difference there if you know science and how to do research.
I think one thing, this is kind of a nitpicky, but something that you guys might not realize that are on wet lab with, I think this is unique to iGEM projects, is that we're doing really an engineering project rather than a discovery project, if that makes sense. So rather than collecting data along the way and like finding out details about something. It's really, you're creating a device. And what's going to be frustrating about this is that there isn't a lot of data until the very end, a lot of the time. So there's a lot of really minor work to build up to a project, which has been frustrating for simulations in previous years because we don't get data until like the end of summer sometimes. Do any other wet lab members want to comment on that, or simulations members?
Yeah, I would agree with that as well. I'd also say that like a lot of our like data collecting is really mostly just like developing our project, because what we start with at the beginning is not necessarily what we end with at the end of the year, right? So like a lot of what wet lab does is just sort of like taking what we do in the lab and then also like what we find in literature to like push our project forward, I guess.
Would you say that like optimization is a good way to describe it? That you're trying to optimize existing like methods?
Yeah.
Would you also say that like literature review would fall underneath wet lab?
Not exclusively, but definitely wet lab members do have to do that.
So just a brief question. What does the simulations team do before we get data to work with? Do we build models that don't involve data?
That's a great segue into dry lab. But no, that's like probably the first question that exists. I see that Hannah's eating, so maybe I can start off the discussion. Dry lab is actually called modeling, oftentimes by iGEM, and the reason why is because you're building models. And if you are familiar with computational work, models can mean a lot of different things, right? Models can mean algorithms. Models can mean like a machine learning structure. It can mean like the protein models we work with, like physical models, and doing something computationally with those physical models. It's kind of like setting all of that up. It's like creating systems basically that work with the data. Another thing that I would say, and I'll just shut up after this, is that you can often work with like what's it called, dummy data, right? Just data that you think is similar to what it actually is, and create a system that way. One of the ways that you test robustness of your system is to make sure that no matter what magnitude of data you're giving it, it'll work, right? So in a way, you should get to the point where by the time you actually have real data, you can like, really quickly go through that.
All right, great, thank you.
Does anybody else from Dry Lab want to speak to that? And point out some things in this list?
I would like to say that with modeling, you could get some results like really fast as compared to if you do it for a dry lab. So for example, last year we were trying to find like point mutations, and if you just like tried mutating every single point by yourself in a normal wet lab setting, that would take like a lot of time and resources. So like with modeling, you could just have a computer do these brute force algorithms that check every single different combination and see which one turned out to be the best. And that's a lot faster than just doing it in person.
Yeah, also like you briefly like talked about optimization in wet lab, but a lot of simulations does optimization as well, because you can do it a lot quicker with modeling than in like real life.
Are there any other points here that you would highlight?
I guess also you could create like visuals of your system. Like for example, like you could use the models to create like graphs or like 3D models of your protein.
So I think that's like number 19, for example, right? And 18.
I suppose there is like a kind of communication component. Like not only are we doing experiments, but it's helpful to like, show a picture of like what's actually going on, when we present our project.
Yeah, I think also not only is like dry lab, you would need wet lab results in order to sort of like build your dry lab, but also the simulations and the models that you run at like in dry lab can assist wet lab in like determining what kind of changes they need to make as well.
I think we'll get into this later in the meeting, but like with metal requirements, like you're supposed to prove that your model impacted wet lab in some way.
Yeah, so I think that's a good point. In point number 5, it says that. I think that is a big, big area. And that's what makes doing dry lab actually hard in the end. It's actually a really high stakes game because you don't really know. It's very hard to make sure that dry lab is aiding wet lab throughout your project. And if you can figure that out, then that's what deserves the gold medal. And like, this isn't something that like undergrads are necessarily expected to do. Like, this is something that like whole labs struggle to do. And so it's actually pretty cool if we can do it. And it's theoretically possible in many different ways. We just have to be very, very serious and creative enough. I don't see anything that I would consider not true. So maybe we can move on. Does anybody else have questions about dry lab?
Well, I would say like one thing, like not necessarily like this isn't true, but a lot of people seem to get or have the idea that simulation kind of supports wet lab, which it does, but it's also a very significant part of the project.
Yeah, I think that's a good point. Okay, anything else? Okay. Let's move on to human practices. So this is the most confusing one, I think, in a lot of different ways. So I guess just in general, returning members, like from what you've seen from the past year of iGEM, such as things you've seen at the Jamboree if you were there, what would you say are like the main points from this list that you would highlight?
Are there any people from Outreach who aren't on the document? I know there are 5 people on Zoom that aren't on the document. Just let me know if you need access to the Google Drive or something.
Okay,
I would say.
oh,
Oh,
wait.
wait.
No, you can go.
You want to
can
go first?
No,
Okay.
you go.
Okay. Looking at the list, I think 10 and 18 were the ones I saw the most like teams who had really good human practices aspects do at the Jamboree. So yeah.
Yeah, to like add on to that, I agree a lot with number 4. So immediately when it comes to like human practices, like the Calgary team comes to mind just because of how much they did when talking to stakeholders and people who were really affected by their project, such as like farmers and stuff. So it's basically just like talking to anybody that would be affected by your project. So maybe like consumers or like other companies that kind of work in that area of like research. And then they give you like feedback, or they're like, oh, this is a good idea, pursue it. And then you basically tailor your project to meet the demands of those people or those organizations.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I would emphasize that latter half. Like, it's not just about talking and like being like, oh yeah, I understand. Okay, it's good that we learned that. Like, it's not just that. That gets us to silver, and I'll go over that in a little bit. But what really makes the project is if we can get to that level early enough and deep enough, so then we can actually go back to the lab in a general sense, like wet lab, dry lab, all of that, and be like, how can we change this so that we can actually meet the needs that they presented, or we can meet the criteria that they presented. So in that way, it's very, very engineering heavy. If you're in an engineering field, you know that that's basically how engineering works, right? There is an iteration cycle that you go through where you're trying to meet your customers' criteria and constraints. And they might change as you discover more, right? If you are from a bio background, you know that, the first time you do an experiment, it will probably fail in your research. And so you have to go back to the literature, you have to go talk to people and figure out what did I do wrong or what can I improve on? And it's sort of the same way, just applied in a different field, in a social field, where we have to keep saying like, okay, what about this can be improved, or what kind of data can we gather that we can take back to our experimentation table and improve our project, right? And I agree with 10 and 18 as well, because you can then kind of dovetail into two different aspects of it. One is the ethical, social impact of our final product. And the second is what actually is our final product, more of a business, commercial kind of sense, right? Human practices is this overarching umbrella term for all of that. And so that's what makes it very complicated, but very, very cool. This is not something that I have seen in any other research field to a very strong extent. Yeah, maybe I'll just leave it there. Does anybody else have questions or like something to add?
I think I just wanted to add the fact that I think that the second part that you talked about, like taking what we learn from stakeholders or who we contact and applying that back to our project and changing our project based on that, was a weakness that we had last year in our project. It was really a second thought for our project, and I think that was one of the major reasons we weren't as successful as we wanted to be. So I think if we are, like, whether we do a 1-year project or a 2-year project, I think this is like applying what we learn from stakeholders back to our project, and really like incorporating that into our project is something we should really focus on if we want a strong project.
Yeah, I think the last one, point 20, is actually a good summary. Like, it's kind of simple, but that's really what we want to do. We don't want to just consider, we actually want to make the project applicable, right? So it takes engineering seriously. If we're making a product, it actually has to be useful, is really what it comes down to. Okay, let's move on to outreach. And outreach wasn't really it isn't really a team aspect, and I'll cover what that means. But it is a part of iGEM, so there's outreach. Okay, so if you were involved in outreach last year, maybe just take a few minutes to read through it and just point out some things.
I think I would say expanding synthetic biology as a field over a greater population. So that means, like, For example, last year we worked with like trying to spread to disadvantaged groups, and we also held like some events like sit down with SynBio to just get more people to know what synthetic biology is. And I think the reason that was a requirement is because they want the synthetic biology field to grow and get like more people to know about it so it could advance more.
Yeah, kind of like building off of what Eric said. Yeah, it's definitely about educating the public about synthetic biology, but like you have to consider how we're going to educate them, because many current methods of education aren't going to be accessible to underrepresented communities. So if you think about just like going to a school fair or doing something like that, lots of teams do that. But you have to think about like how can we spread it to, how can we educate people who are blind, who can't hear, who are in school districts that don't have much funding to have those kind of school fairs. So you have to think about all of that and kind of try to build a curriculum around that to make it more accessible to them. So yeah, that was our main point, basically kind of expanding how we're going to reach those communities last year.
I think another key part of like at least what I thought outreach was doing was also like taking like the basics and providing like kind of like transparency of what synthetic biology is. So that way it doesn't seem like it's like super like something that's like in the dark or like a very niche subtopic, especially at Sit Down with SynBio. I think like a large point of that entire like event was to like show people like the opportunities and applications that it can have.
So like simplify synthetic biology.
Yeah.
Cool. Awesome. Any other points?
Yeah, and then I also think that because like human practices is how like the general public, or not necessarily general public, like the stakeholders, like want our project to be like they have thoughts on us. And then I think outreach is like the other way around, like how our project or how we can influence the general public with like synthetic biology or our project. So it's like it's another way around of human practices. So like when we think about how other people want us to make change like in our project, we may also have to think of how we can influence the general public, like how we can benefit them.
That's a really good point, actually. Yeah, I really like that point. How can we influence the public instead of them influencing us? Okay, any other points? Okay, let's move on to web dev. So, Jennifer and Max, okay, you guys are here. Yeah, maybe you two can take a few minutes to just look over this list and point out the main things that you feel is most important for web dev.
I just want to say that I think this has been going really well, but I am a little bit worried about our time right now. So maybe if we can speed up these next few ones, if possible.
Yeah, I was feeling the same way. Okay, what are your thoughts right now?
I can go first.
Mm-hmm.
I think the second one and the seventh. So we are basically learning about the existing tools and building new tools to develop wiki page to showcase our project, which is 12.
Yeah, I would agree. I would say that like this like point about showcasing in point 12 is really good, and I know a lot of the other points also explain it, but like it's not in a visual artistic sense, but more like a user interaction and design, like user experience kind of way, right? So UX UI is what you would say. Like improving that aspect is, I think, a big part of the web development team. And yeah, Max, do you have anything to add to that? Oh, you're muted. Oh, hello? Okay, I'm just gonna unmute you. Wait, that didn't work. Okay, that is not working. Okay, well, Max figures that out. I'm also gonna say that, like, just to give a big overview. Oh, you're good.
Okay.
Okay.
So I've been wondering, what's the design team's role in our team page design?
Yes, I want to talk about that. So the web dev team does have to work really closely with design in determining what the artistic sense is, such as the theme and the schemes of things, or basically interacting with design as a partner team that is kind of developing the aesthetics of the website, right? But the implementation has to be done by web dev, because most of the design will not know how to actually implement the design decisions that design wants to do. Does that make sense? And the design team doesn't necessarily also consider user interaction. So the web dev team can push back with counter arguments about why a certain design decision is not a good idea in terms of user interaction. Does that make sense?
Yep.
And just to give everybody an understanding of why this is so important, iGEM doesn't actually have you write a paper. We make a poster and a website, and that's it. Like, that's literally the only things that judges look at, along with a presentation we do, in order to figure out what our work has been, which is actually really limited, which makes it so that 80% of our work, 80% of what is factored into for judges to determine whether our work was good enough is actually the wiki. That's why the wiki has to be really good. And you have to even consider, is it easy for judges to look through the wiki? Because that's going to impact how the judges feel about the content that's on there. And it also is the truth that much of the wiki's content has to be done later in the year, right? Like near the deadline, because we're gonna be working until then. And so when we get to actually putting things in the wiki, it has to be easy enough for everybody to contribute to. And that's what tools are that web dev is developing. So it's kind of a meta thing where web dev is developing things so that other people can add content to the website without knowing how to code. Yeah. Any questions? I'd like to move on if it's okay. Okay, cool. Yeah, we are running out of time, so I'm just gonna breeze through this. So fundraising, I'm just going to point out that fundraising is about getting money, and people can highlight things that they feel is the most important. It's about getting money, obviously. It's also about communicating really well. And it's also about being able to sort of negotiate in a good way. So if we're talking to our donors, we have to think about how do we engage with donors in the most effective way to make sure they don't get pissed off or that they feel like they want to donate to us, which is actually not simple. If you've done this for other RSLs, for example. So that's really the two aspects that fundraising is about. The pragmatic thing is getting money, and the more nuanced thing is how do we talk to these donors in the most effective way, and what should we give them, right? Okay. moving on to design. Delaney, I guess you're the only person who was on design from this group.
I've already highlighted the stuff that I think is most important.
Okay, great. Do you just want to summarize?
Sure, yeah. So a lot of you got the idea that we form like the brand of the team, but we also make it, I don't know, the second point, make pretty things so people like our stuff. Yeah, I'd say that covers quite a bit of it as well. The one at the bottom also was pretty good, intuitive and appealing, but also like it needs to be informational. So, because people like looking at pictures more than they like reading a bunch of words. So
I would say that, I would add on and say that design has to be very, very interdisciplinary. Like we ideally want, and we design it in a way where there's a lot of people in design who are on very different team aspects. And the reason is that design has to be able to make everything intuitive and informational for any other team. And those figures or pictures or whatever is going to all go into the wiki. And so it's one thing to make a really big data heavy table that looks like you have a lot of data, but you don't really know what you're supposed to take out of it, and then give it to design and they can actually highlight what is the biggest takeaway that you're supposed to have. So that's like an example of how design directly creates material for the team. And I think another thing that I would just add is that if we have any events or any particular specific like tasks that design needs to do, that would also be in their domain, such as like a wet lab for some reason has to make some figure for a presentation they're giving to a funder, you know, that design might come in and help to make that, right? Or HP needs to talk to a company about our project, and in that pitch deck, we want to make sure that it's really clear what we're describing, right? Something like that. So all of these are things that design would do. Okay, Carl, I think we should move on.
Yeah, I agree. So if everybody could scroll back up to where we left off in number 2 or number 3, I think I'm gonna just for part C, 3C. Oh, I guess we didn't do B either. Okay, let's look at B briefly. So there's a link to a PDF. Yoshi, how much time do you think we should spend on this versus your section?
2 minutes.
2 minutes?
Yeah, should I just share my screen? I have it up.
Sure, that would work.
I'll just share my screen.
maybe we could just have everybody kind of read it on their own time.
Yeah.
That's probably a good idea. Okay, you guys can look at it and I'll just talk about briefly some issues we've had in the past. So the diagram highlights a lot of interactions that different sub-teams or team aspects do. This is based on a previous year where we had leadership within each sub-team. So this year's a little bit different. I would just like to emphasize that in order to be a member of this team, you really have to understand what other sub-teams are doing. And that's been I could talk for an hour about issues we've had in previous years related to sub-team interactions, but luckily a lot of you guys are on multiple sub-teams, so that'll be a good start. But just, we've gone through all the different sub-teams, and I would really like to emphasize this year to try to pay extra attention to what other people are doing on the team, even if you're not directly involved in that, because it will become important as the season progresses, so you don't get lost and you can contribute as needed for different things. Is there like a few things that returning members want to emphasize on this diagram, or about what issues we've had in the past?
Not necessarily with this diagram, but like one way to like keep in touch with what other people are doing is like on Zulip, you can subscribe to like the other teams or like team aspects. So like you don't necessarily have to like contribute, but you can still see kind of what's going on.
Yeah. I just want to quickly explain 2 things that are very different or should be emphasized for this year. There's 2 specific teams that are not always part of the team in a much more close way. And those are web dev and the outreach team. So web dev, after the first couple of meetings that we're having right now, web dev is going to be very independent because the things that they're doing is very, very uniquely separated, right? In the things they have to learn. And the things that they do aren't project specific, right? So they don't have to know what the project is to start developing the tools for the website, for example, right? So that's what I mean. They're project agnostic in a way. So in that sense, they don't have to necessarily be included in a lot of the discussions that we have. We still want web dev people to still come to all team meetings and stuff like that. There's another team called the SymBio for Everyone team. And I just want to explain this to everybody. That's what we previously called the outreach team. SymBio for Everyone is basically a spin-off of the Washington iGEM team. And what they're developing is a curriculum that started last year that is very, very heavy on increasing accessibility for synthetic biology education to young people. Okay, that's not the only thing they're working on, but that's the biggest thing that they're working on. They're trying to spend this year to actually publish this document, and it's specifically catered to deaf people right now, but they also want to make it cater to other people with disabilities. It's going to be published, it's going to be tested in very different ways. So that's where they're developing. This again is not project specific, it's project agnostic. And so they are actually operating mostly independently, even more than the web dev team this year, but they are still technically part of our team. We are going to include their developments into our iGEM wiki, for example. And in the future, we're hoping that we can sort of partner with them, almost like a partner organization to the main iGEM team, once we solidify what the human practices team aspect is doing, right? So the human practices team aspect is very, very different from SymBio for Everyone team. The human practices team is going to be very project specific. It depends on the project of what we're going to do for human practices, which I think we've just explained today. Okay.
I'll also point out that we don't have a business team this year, right? We don't have a business team, do we? Right. So that might be a little bit confusing, but I think that as we develop our project a bit more, there may be members who kind of take responsibilities that might have been under that team in previous years, so like contacting stakeholders and whatnot.
Right. So specifically, the human practices team, which will have to start meeting soon, the human practices aspect is going to have to divide up into kind of working groups, right? Where people might have different focuses, but I strongly don't want to think about it as if it's a separate team between, for example, the business aspect and the outreach aspect and the public policy or biosecurity aspects, because they all have to mesh together or from the beginning in order for it to be an actually good human practices work. So I hope that makes sense. You can totally study this later on, and there will be you can ask questions on Zulip, for example, and we can have a conversation about this. Okay, so I'm gonna briefly go over medal criteria and special awards. I'm gonna share my screen to do this. Does everybody see this? Yes, sorry, I can't see you, so.
Yeah.
Okay, great. So this is the medal criteria page from last year. And I'm showing this because we don't have one for this year yet. For this year, it will be very, very similar, I think. Well, I don't know anymore, but it was expected to be pretty similar to last year. So I just want to briefly go over what it is. We don't have a lot of time, so I'll just quickly go through it. So the medal criteria are not like first place, second place, third place. They are kind of brackets that you can qualify into. So the bronze medal is a bracket that you can qualify into, as is silver and gold. only the gold members, only the gold teams are eligible for the grand prize, which is the actual first place, second place, third place. There's a grand prize, a runner-up, and the second runner-up. Sometimes they're the third runner-up. Sometimes there are no runner-ups. It all depends on the unique kind of formula that the judging team uses to judge. Okay. In order to reach the bronze medal requirement, you have to meet all the bronze medal requirements. That's not the case for every single medal. Last year it was you had to register, you have to have your competition deliverables done, which itself is a lot. You have to have attributions very clearly noted in your wiki, and you have to include what is called the project inspiration and description, and you have to do characterization. Characterization is a wet lab task that has to do with detailing what is a behavior of your genetic parts that you develop in your project. This is the very synthetic biology aspect of the project, or one of it. I'm gonna move on to silver. Silver, all the criteria have to be met. The first one is about this genetic part. You have to actually validate the part. It's not just documenting what should happen and we've made it. You actually show real data that shows we made it and it works as intended, which is not easy. It's often very challenging to do that. You also have to have a collaboration method. You have to collaborate with other teams and human practices. You have to actually consider how your project impacts the world and how the world impacts your project. Note that I say consider, and that's a key word there. As long as you show that, you showed all these, you can get silver. For gold, there are 4 criteria, but you only have to meet 2 of them. The first criteria is integrated human practices. Integrated human practices is when you have taken the considerations, the data, so to speak, that you gathered from human practices and actually implement it into your project decisions in such a way that you convince the judges that you have taken the human practices knowledge and you have effectively steered the project influenced on your human practices. That's the best summary I can give. Improvement of a previous part is a wet lab task. It's you have created a new BioBrick part and it actually is implementing an improvement on a previous BioBrick part. That's what it means. The third one is modeling. This is dry lab. You have to show that your dry lab methods and modeling has actually impacted and informed your project, okay? And the fourth one is that your system works, which is like actually really hard if you think about it. It's like your whole thing works. So you have to get 2 of these. So that's the medal criteria. There are, other than the medal criteria, there are things called tracks. So there are standard tracks and then there are special tracks. Obviously, high school is not a track that we fit into, but we can fit into the other standard tracks. We pick one, or we can compete as a special track. If we're a special track, we're not eligible for the grand prize. So I would go for the standard tracks almost always. And they're just kind of general categories that every iGEM project is fit into, okay? Any questions so far? Okay, great. Now I just want to briefly talk about awards. Every special track, every track has an award other than the medals. So you can win a best of track award, basically. So there's a best diagnostic project, there's a best energy project, and so on and so forth. You can also get nominated for these tracks. In other than the tracks, there are other awards. So as I explained, there are the grand prizes. There is grand prize undergraduate, first runner-up, and second runner-up undergraduate. The undergraduate grand prize is known as the original grand prize. This is like the top prize out of all the grand prizes. The overgraduate category has a grand prize for overgraduate and a first runner-up as well. And a high school has a grand prize. Sometimes in previous years, they have picked a runner-up for high school. Okay, there's a standard track awards, as I explained. And then there are things called special prizes. Now, these are highly coveted because there's often a higher chance that you can get the special prizes than the other ones. What I mean by that is that for these track awards, there is actually no rubric. It's actually up to some sort of private mechanism that they figure out what the best therapeutic project is. There isn't a very good judging guideline for that. And I think it might be something that's privately held. However, for the special tracks, so the special prizes, it describes very clearly what you need to do in order to become the special prize award winner. So last year, our team won the Best Education and Public Engagement Award. And there are a lot of other ones as well. So for example, Best Integrated Human Practices, Best Model, Best Composite Part, which is a combined BioBrick part, a genetic part. You can even do Best Poster or Best Presentation, and there's a Best Wiki. So all of these are eligible for anybody to get. There is no limitation on you having to be a gold medal winner, for example. So what we're gonna do this week is, if you go into the meeting notes, I'm gonna stop sharing. If you go into the meeting notes and look at point number 5, there is this team spreadsheet. Okay. And if you open that, you can see that it's really simple right now. There's a team spreadsheet. And we're gonna divide up into, wow, the numbers are messed up. Okay, we're gonna divide up into 7 different teams. I think that's right. And we're gonna have 4 to 3 people in each team. I think we can do this pretty much randomly if you guys want. How I was thinking of doing it is that you guys can just sign up to a project that you want to look at. Okay, let me describe first. There are 2 projects from last year that we're looking at that are gold projects: the NCKU Tainan team and the Calgary team. The NCKU Tainan team was the grand prize undergraduate winner. Calgary was runner-up. And then there's our team, which is silver. And then there is a Stanford team, which you thought would be good, but they got bronze. Okay. Notably, Harvard had a team and they didn't even get a medal. They didn't even get bronze. So just because your school is good doesn't mean you're good at iGEM. What I would like to do is that every person each team should go into the project last year, read their wiki, look at what they're doing, and find out why is it that they got a gold? Why is it that they got a silver? Why is it that they got a bronze? Especially for the silver one, why do you think that the judges did not give us a gold? For the bronze one, why did they not get a silver? Right? So look at the medal criteria and figure that out. Okay? There are good resources that I linked here that are starting points. I forgot one thing, which is a judging handbook. There's a link to a judging handbook on the website, the 2019 website. It should be very easy to find. I'll link it on Zulip as well. But the judging handbook is another very, very good guideline to look at. The judging handbook is what the judges actually look at in order to determine whether or not a project deserves gold, silver, or bronze. Okay, so we're gonna have four teams determine the medal criteria. We're gonna have 3 teams determine the special prizes. Why did they get the special prize and not the other nominees? So I want you to look at these special prizes, look at the other nominees, maybe look at some other projects and figure out what is it about this team and what they did for the special prize based on the criteria and the rubric and the judging rubric. Why is it that they got this? And next week when we meet again for our meeting, I would like each project to actually describe their findings. You can make a PowerPoint, you can just take us through the website by doing a screen share. And you can divide up like who's talking about what. Does that make sense? Okay, so what I think is the best is actually, if you just have a particular interest, just sign up for 1 slot. I would like it to be as random as possible. So just pick what you're interested in. Don't try to like go with your friends or whatever. We're all gonna be friends. So, yeah, just pick what you're mostly interested in. Like for example, if you're really interested in the HP stuff, maybe you want to go for Calgary's Best Integrated Human Practices, or you're really curious about gold medal criteria, go for one of the gold medal criteria. If you're interested in why Stanford sucked, you like go for Stanford, like that. Eric, I didn't think that you would be a part of this, but that's okay. I think there's enough slots. And if you don't really care, just sign up to one slot once everybody's done, I guess. So I'm just going to give people just like 2 or 3 minutes to sign up. And if your spot got taken, don't worry, because once everybody fills in, I'm going to ask if anybody wants to switch. Hannah, just pick best education and public engagement because you were
But
part
I
of
already
that.
know how to do that. Like, I can explain that in like 5 minutes.
Okay, how about best measurement?
Oh, sure.
So best measurement, let me describe what best measurement is. Best measurement is really interesting for your dry lab people or maybe the technical people. Best measurement is how good were you at making extremely robust protocols and measurement systems. The reason why iGEM cares about that is because biology is super duper wet and squishy, and it's very hard to make things precise. And best measurement is basically examples of teams that create robust, precise methods. It's an interesting thing if you read into it. Okay, did everybody sign up into a thing? Okay, speak up or chat in the chat box, the group chat box, if you didn't yet.
There's only one person that picked education.
Yeah, so I thought that we would have to shuffle people, okay?
God damn. Okay.
Oh, thanks, Eric. So, first of all, I would like to make some of the, oh, wait, first of all, Jay, can you randomly assign the people that are not here?
Okay.
Thanks. First of all, does anybody want to switch, but it was full, so they don't?
Actually, I want to switch, but it wasn't because it was full. Can I?
Yeah, sure. Is it, what do you want to switch to? You can just switch your name if there's a slot.
I just wanted, I didn't know what best measurement was, but after you described it, I'm kind of interested in it now.
Okay, yeah, you can just switch to best measurement. Okay, does anybody else want to switch into Tainan's gold? Okay, in that case, I think we are, I think we're okay. Jay, can you put one person in for the bronze medal project?
Okay.
Okay, I know somebody had to go soon. Okay, cool. Okay, I think this is good. So what we would like all you to do is to use use Zulip and make a group chat, okay? Make a group chat with your team and just start talking, okay? I'm also going to create, if you want it to be public so that like advisors can jump in to help you whenever you want, because I'm gonna be looking at everything, I'm going to create a new stream just for this. Just like, I don't know what I'll call it yet, but I'm gonna create a new stream that I'm gonna invite all of you to by posting on general. And you can just create a topic in that stream just for your team. And you can just use that, right? And if you don't care about that topic, you can mute it. So that if you're not in that team, you don't have to look at it, right? And it'll just disappear from you. And that's how I would like you to work. So you can like schedule a meeting, a Zoom meeting to talk about it. You can assign things. I will not micromanage you guys. I expect all of you guys to be able to work together in a team. It's just that next week you can have a PowerPoint ready, a Google Slides ready, or a script ready while going through the website or something like that. Okay, any questions? Okay, great. I know that was really quick, but I hope that this is a great way for you guys to dive into some project that's pretty cool. Stanford's is still pretty cool. I looked at it. I'm surprised they got a bronze, but I didn't really read into their stuff. I hope this is a way to get to know how cool iGEM is, as well as learning what the prizes are and the middle criteria are. Again, this is a competition. We're in it to win it. So we want to know what it takes to win it, so that's really why we're looking into this. time and time again, year after year, it's become very apparent that teams that actually read the judging handbook and know what the medal criteria are able to get a gold. Teams that don't read into it, that are confused about what to do for iGEM, don't win the medals. And so that's why we're starting off very first meeting with figuring this out. Okay? Any general questions about that? Okay, does Carl or anybody else, do you want to add into something?
Just make sure you guys, if you have any questions, just post. I think we might make a little bit more of a detailed summary of the task to make sure you guys are all clear.
Yeah.
I think your description was good though.
Okay. There is a topic.
I have a brief question.
Yeah,
do we just
sure.
compile all of our our research per se in like a Google document and put it in like a folder for all of us, or are
You
we
can do it
organizing
however you want. You can, so you can please use that shared Google Drive. You can create a folder for yourself. Maybe we'll create that right after this and link you that folder. But you can create a document, you can create a subfolder, you can do however you want. Just work collaboratively. Does that make sense?
You guys could even have like meetings on your own if you wanted to.
Yeah, I would encourage that.
Mm-hmm.
Any other questions?
So will our next meeting be next weekend?
Yeah, if there weren't any specific questions to this, I want to talk about that actually. So
Our next thing is a timeline.
Yeah.
We have a timeline document we could go to.
Okay. Yeah, let's do that. So if you go back to the meeting notes and click the updated timeline, this is something I made last night. Oh no, this morning. So we are here, iGEM orientation meeting 1 on the first page, that's number 2. And this gives a very good, clear idea of how few weeks we have until finals week. We have a lot to do in a very short time. So we're gonna move very quickly. And I think that's what you guys signed up for. So now that you're settled into this quarter, this virtual quarter, hopefully we can move quickly from now on. Carl, is there specifically something you wanted to say about next meeting or?
Oh, I just, you guys filled out the when to meet for 2 weeks. So it should be next Saturday. I think that's the next best date again. It'll probably be at the same time at noon.
Is the same time okay for everybody? Okay, in that case, I would like to keep the same time unless there's somebody who just week after week can't make it. I'm hoping that you guys can all make sure to prioritize your schedule so that every week at this time on Saturday, you have the time open for iGEM. We don't want to make the meetings longer than an hour and a half. So that I will say. And we'll post very soon with a more detailed agenda of what we're covering. We'll start with the presentations of this task, basically. Okay. Yeah, any general questions other than what we've covered? Like, is anybody very confused about Zulip, for example? Or anything like that? Okay, cool. In that case, thanks for coming. And we'll post a couple summaries and stuff like that right after this. Okay, thanks. Bye.
Bye.
Bye.